listening to The Chris Maher Show, live on YouTube.
All right, what is up, everybody? Here, welcome into the Chris Maher Show here on YouTube, exclusively on YouTube. Tuesday nights, 6 to 7. We got a lot to talk about today. A lot of different things to chat about with this Flyers team at the moment. There's been, for the Flyers, right? For right now, the season is. As I'm getting tangled up in my cords, the season is, it's kind of lost at this point, right? I mean, you have to try and see what you have, and I think for me, I think the reason I am starting up this show, and kind of the whole basis behind that, I previously did FFM 93 Live, and I didn't really go the way I wanted it to. There were some different things that I kind of messed up with that, and just overall, just some things that I wasn't too really happy about, I guess, when it happened. I think for me, I'm trying to do something a little bit different. For this type of show, right, there's going to be obviously the call-in line, which was very similar to what FFM 93 Live had. So obviously still have that. That's still going to be a main part of this. And again, I'll mention some different things, with that when it, happens, and as the show kind of progresses and I get a couple episodes in, stuff like that. But, for right now, like the guests example, like Bill Melter is going to be joining me at 6:20 here for about 20 minutes. And we're going to be talking about a bunch of different things, but Bill's actually going to be joining me over the phone. So that's one of the new things that's going to be a little bit different with the show. I'm going to do just so many different things with this. And again, I think for me, one of the things that I've always wanted to try and do was, obviously make this into one of the best sites to cover the Flyers and watch the Flyers and hear from people who cover the game and know the game of hockey. I think that's one of the things that I've been wanting to do with this show, and really try to just kind of add, if anybody listening who, maybe just hearing of me or any of that stuff. Again, obviously my name is Chris. I'm 19 years old. I go to Temple University. I am a second semester sophomore. I go to school for this stuff. I'm a media studies and production major. For me, the Flyers have always been part of my life. I've been a fan since I was maybe 9 or 10. I've always really enjoyed just talking Flyers and all of that stuff. And I used to, I do the game recap videos as well after every game. And I wanted to try to, again, add something into the show, right, and kind of add something into my content. And this was kind of something I wanted to do. Just want to say what's up to everybody in the chat. Tristan, what's up, buddy? Thanks for tuning in. Johnny Mercury, thank you so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Obviously gonna be getting some more people throughout the time here. So again, just a lot of different stuff. And I think for right now, for me, I'm trying to do different things. And again, I'm younger, I'm still in school. I'm doing all of this myself. I'm the host, the producer, the editor. So if the production isn't always, what you're used to, if it's, if you watch like, just like 94.1 or anything like that, like, I do all this myself. So, that's kind of just what I wanted to say. And I do so many different things on here on YouTube and everything. So, again, I'm super excited for this. And, obviously I hope everybody enjoys and tunes in and watches. And, Mr. Twister, what's up, brother? Thanks for, tuning in, dude. Always appreciate, you, hopping in here. Mr. Twister is he's actually on my YouTube. It says he's one of my number one commenters. Him, Sean Fitzpatrick, there's a couple other people, which again is greatly appreciated. I always love when everybody kind of hops in here. So we're getting more and more as the time goes on here. But for right now, again, the season is kind of lost, right? There's a lot of different things I'm going to be talking about tonight. We got just really, are these games still meaningful is kind of one of the main things. So let me, let's kind of get into that, and let's get into the show here, everybody.
You're listening to the Chris Maher Show, live on YouTube.
All right, so one of the main topics that I kind of wanted to break down here, I guess, was, are these games really still meaningful? And, for me, they are, I think. I think there are some different things that you can kind of pick out of these games. For me, look, obviously Bedard is one thing. The more the Flyers lose, the better the chance they have to get Connor Bedard. And I think when you look at everything that's kind of gone wrong with this team over the past couple of years, really, one of the main things that's obviously going to help this team is getting Connor Bedard. It's just a proven fact at this point. I'm not the person that roots for the Flyers to lose. I'm not, always wanting them to purposely lose games for the sake of getting a number one pick. I don't think that's always the best case. My phone keeps buzzing over here. I don't think it's always the best case. I do think these games are still meaningful in the sense that, like, you still have to figure out a lot with this team, right? We don't know who's still going to be here. Johnny Mercury brings up a good point here in the chat. He says, these are more for pride, so let's beat the hell out of the rest of the league. Wouldn't hurt us. Yeah, I mean, look, I think, I think it would hurt a little bit because, again, one of the main things you look into the summer is getting a number one pick, and if you can do that, great, right? But I will say, none of these players, they don't play to lose. I don't think John Tortorella does not coach to lose. There aren't really many other things that you look at with this team that you say to yourself, and I mentioned this in the game recap the other night. I don't really look at this as, I think the Flyers should lose tonight, or like, I want the Flyers to lose tonight type thing. Like, that's just not how I am. That's just not my DNA. It's the best way I could put it. So, I think, for right now, I genuinely do like to see wins, but also at the same time, it doesn't really bother me if they lose, because I understand what the kind of flip side of it is, right? If we lose, okay, but we have a chance to get Connor Bedard. So the recent game on Saturday against Carolina, you had, that was a win that was taken right out of the Flyers' jaws. And unfortunately, they weren't able to close out that game. They lose 5-4 in overtime to the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday. And it wasn't necessarily a bad game. I mean, it was arguably their best third period. But there are other fans that, look at that and they say to themselves, all right, well, we get a point, but we still lost. And that's kind of where I'm at sometimes too. It's like, all right, we lost, but at the same time, we also have a chance to see, where we stand, when the summer comes around, right? Because you have so many different things there's so many moving parts to this team in the summer. And right, because we don't know if Kevin Hayes is going to be back, if Ivan Provorov is going to be back, if Travis Sanheim is going to be back, right? I mean, what about some of these other guys? I mean, you have a lot of RFAs. Some guys are going to be getting other contracts. Some guys are on 1-year deals. All of that stuff. And I think the one thing, right, for tonight, the Flyers take on the Florida Panthers tonight at 7:00. But you have 13 games left. As of right now, and then 12 after tonight's game. So the one thing that you want to look for is, guys playing for deals, right? Guys like Brendan Lemieux, right? Guys like Morgan Frost, like, players like that. You also, what about Sean Couturier? What about Travis Konechny? I mean, there's different things, right? If Couturier were to come back and play, would I think it's a pretty high possibility that he probably can, because again, the Flyers will have 12 games after tonight against Florida, and obviously Couturier is not playing tonight, which I'll break down the. We'll be previewing the game soon. There's a lot of different things that kind of go on with, the rest of this season. So I think for right now, let's kind of, transition into the offensive struggles, because the offensive struggles for this team, there's been, I'm just setting up my timer here. The offensive struggles for this team, and I have all of the stats here to kind of break this down. Again, Bill Meltzer will be joining me in about 10 minutes here. There's a lot of different things that you can kind of look at, right? I mean, let me just take, I look, for this show and this stuff, I've been doing handwritten notes. I have like 4 pages of notes, and I think one of the main things that I wanted to really try and get here was a lot of the offensive stats. And I'm curious what everybody thinks down below as well, because I have many different things here, from the power play to all of that stuff. So I'm going to just read off some of this stuff. The power play alone for the Flyers right now is at a 15.5% on the season. They have power play goals in back-to-back games. Tippett versus Buffalo. Also, another little thing here. The Flyers since February 19th, so that is a month since Sunday. So that's, a little over a month. The Flyers are 3 for 27, 11.1%, 12 games played. Fifth, that would be 1 shorthanded goal against, and they are last in the NHL. So that is the one thing with the power play, which has been a huge concern, obviously. If you were to break that down by month, started out the season 21.4% on the power play. Actually had a really good power play to start the year. Had some really big power play goals in the month of October. 9.1% in November. 18.9% in December. 17% in January, 11.8% in February, and then 15% in March. So it's ebbed and flowed, but obviously not good enough. It's 3% better, about a little less than 3% better than last season. When the Flyers ended last season, and that was more of just the season alone. And again, if anybody wants to call in about this topic, 267-939-1216. For right now, you have a team, and the problem is they just don't score. So it's, the power play breakdown, right? I mean, you're 19.4% at home, 11.6% on the road. In the season alone, right? I mean, there have been some big games. We got Tristan calling in now, so let me answer this one. Hey, Tristan, go ahead, buddy.
What's up, Chris? What's up?
How are you?
Also the Flyers and Pens game this past 2 weeks, and what else? We lose.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm talking about here, right? You got, your game that was last Saturday, and you only scored 1 goal. You didn't get many chances. Obviously, you were there for it, but yeah, I mean, the offense just has not been ideal right now.
Oh, thank God you wasn't even not at the game, because I was in a Penguins arena with my Flyers gear on, and I would hear one single Penguin fan will say the Flyers suck, and like while they're on the power play, they're like being slow on the power play, and then they started talking smack about my team. Oh, and by the way, I come out with a sad face.
Yeah, no, and that was kind of how I felt in Carolina, unfortunately, when they ended up going, because again, they get shut out. And in the last couple of games, they've scored more, but they haven't actually been able to get as many goals that can kind of keep themselves into it. But yeah, no, I mean, I hear you, dude. It's unfortunate.
I and now I know we cannot talk on because you're talking to your friend Bill Metzger pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and we go to the Carolina and Philly on Saturday. Then okay, Scott Laughton took a stupid penalty. Then and he barely and then next later it was like little time and Sandstrom Stone causes spare. Then next later, who else? Martin Nakes scores a goal because there was like nobody from in front of the net.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, Saturday's game was tough because you blew the lead. You blew the lead, right? You had time where you could have been able to kind of just ice it, and unfortunately they couldn't. But, buddy, thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
Yeah. All right.
All right, Tristan. I'll talk to you, man.
All right. Bye.
See you, man. Yeah. So, and that's kind of what Tristan was saying, right? I mean, I think the offense. He mentioned the game he was at in Pittsburgh. Flyers scored 1 goal. I was in Carolina when they played against Raleigh. Or when they were in Raleigh, when they played against Hurricanes, the overall, just again, they're not scoring, and unfortunately, that's been the main thing for the season. Right, they only have 77 high danger chances in all situations, or excuse me, 777 goals for in those situations is 77. So. It's 46.95%, so they're really low on that. If you're just looking alone, right? Goals for, 180 goals for on the season, 228 against. The shots per game, it's actually pretty close for shots on goal. 29.3 for the Flyers, and they give up around 31.4 for each game. That's about their average shots against. 45.5% in the face-off on the season. So that's obviously not ideal either, right? There's different things that you want to do with the face-off, and it's unfortunate for the face-off circle because the Flyers were always a good face-off team. They were always kind of right there, right? You always kind of had that. The face-offs were always something that the Flyers were good at when it really mattered, and there were times when, like, this season alone, like again, like just an example off the top of my head, like Laughton, actually getting a call here as well. Hey, Scott, how you doing, brother?
Hey, man. Good. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, just out walking my dog.
Oh, nice. There you go.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's up?
Oh, yeah. Are we doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Live right now. Yep.
We're live. Okay. Well, yeah. First time caller. Thanks for having me on. I'm Scott,
course,
and
yeah.
I just wanted to kind of dive into some of Tort's comments over the weekend. He pretty pointed. He was talking about the team for next year, and there needs to be subtraction before there can be addition, which means, I think free agents or draft picks coming out of the team, and made me think about, obviously he's talking about certain players, leaving, and there's several guys we can talk about, but I wanted to get your take on who's the first guy maybe that would go out of town maybe this summer, and start there, and maybe talk about one of the more surprising names, at least in your opinion, who could go that maybe we're not thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, and I was kind of just diving into the offense a little bit and the struggles of the offense, and I think for us, I was talking about Hayes, and I actually was just mentioning the face-offs and how low the percentage is. The face-off percentage is at a 45.5% for the season, so the Flyers are obviously going to have to, they're going to have to get some upgrades at center. Not saying that, those said guys that are playing center at the moment are bad, but it's just there's going to be changes, right? I mean, I think for for Hayes, right? I gotta have a feeling that I guess I should say I have a feeling that Hayes is probably gone. Obviously, the Flyers have to get younger at center. All of that different stuff. So yeah, I mean, I think for right now, I'd probably have to guess Hayes, if anything.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially since he's not playing center right now.
Right.
I mean, they don't even really view him as a center. I think other teams around the league do, and I think that makes him more valuable because he can play center. I think we all know that. Under Tort's system, he disagrees. And, the Flyers have already come out and said, I think they've tried to trade him even at the deadline when Fletcher was still here. So I would agree with that assessment. And to follow up your point about the face-off percentage, I didn't know 45 was their number on the year.
Yeah.
That's not a good number. But, a healthy Couturier could boost you in that area.
Right, exactly.
So we'll see how he does. Yeah.
Yeah. Scott, look, I actually got Bill Meltzer coming on in about 15 seconds, so I'm gonna have to drop you. So, thanks, man. Again,
you're welcome.
Yeah. Call in any other time, dude. Even if you anytime. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for all your support, dude.
I will. All right. Take care now.
All right, man. Thanks. All right, yeah, as I mentioned, we got Bill Meltzer, and Bill's ringing in now, so here we go. Hey, Bill.
Hey, Chris.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, all good. Yeah, everybody, so this is Bill Meltzer from PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, HockeyBuzz.com as well. Bill, again, I got to say thank you. I know you're, pretty busy right now. You're actually in the press box at the moment. So just to kind of go off, I was just mentioning, I guess the offense for this team, right, and how it's kind of changed. You haven't been scoring as much, even though they scored 12 in their last 3. The offense has kind of really fizzled out a little bit for the season. And I think the one thing that I've been thinking of, and one of the main topics that I kind of started the show off today, was just the how meaningful these games are, right? I mean, you got 13 games left. There'll be 12 after tonight against Florida. How meaningful are these games, and what are some of the things that you, as a guy who's covered this team for a long time, that try to kind of pick out?
Well, I think that obviously wins and losses stopped mattering a while ago, but to me, I think you want to see the team compete, in games. And above all else, you want to see young players take advantage of the opportunity they have for some extended ice time. And that was, as much of a gut punch as the Carolina game was, the way it ended.
Yeah.
One positive thing you could take from that is it was the young guys that really carried the mail for the team that game. So, I mean, if that can happen with some regularity down the stretch, whether you win games or lose games, I think that's the number one thing that I think to look for.
For sure. I mean, especially too, right? Because you have, and this kind of goes into my next question here is, again, you mentioned the young guys. Who are some of those young guys that you've kind of been impressed with up until this point? Because I mean, I think for me, right, obviously Tippett is been good for most of the season. He's really been incredible for most of the year. It's been very enjoyable to watch, to kind of see his progression. And I think for the end of the season, right, you're trying to see more from those type of guys, right? I mean, obviously Tippett, Frost, Cates, York, guys like Brendan Lemieux who are playing for a contract. Who are some of them young guys that you've been kind of impressed with up until this point?
Well, you certainly start with Tippett.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it actually on Twitter today. In the 8 games in March so far, and I don't have it in front of me at the second, but I think it was something like 33 scoring chances in 8 games, 33 scoring chances for Tippett in 8 games. Obviously, the hat trick against Buffalo. I mean, he's been outstanding. And going forward from Tippett, I think there's still every player has adjustments they still have to make. Tortorella has mentioned with Tippett about taking the puck to the net more consistently. I would add on to that, when a teammate has the puck, going to the net more consistently for more tap-in kind of goals, making himself a target. I think that's an area where Tippett still has an opportunity to get better.
Right.
Listen, you and I talk all the time about Morgan Frost. I'm a Frost guy. You're a Frost guy.
Yeah.
if you go over the last 43 games, and that's over half a season now, half a season sample size going back to December the 7th. Tippett has 28 points. Frost has 27 points. It's really the same.
Yeah.
Two different kind of players. Tippett's a goal scorer more. Frost is a distributor more. Tippett after Konechny is leading the team in goals in that span. But Frost is leading the team in assists in that span. Right. I personally think they played their best hockey when together.
I agree.
They want to look at other line combinations. That's fine. But I think both guys to me should be part of this team's future. Obviously Noah Cates, very mature player. He's gotten a lot of tough minutes this season and handled them really well, especially for a guy who hasn't really played very much center in his entire career, whether collegiate or so far in the pros. He's played center all year, and I think he's handled that really well. Good two-way player. So he's a piece of that puzzle.
Yeah.
Cam York, I think ever since he's come up from the Phantoms, he's had some ups and downs like you expect with any young defenseman. But, in terms of moving the puck out of the zone, quick stick, I think that the power play upside for him.
Yeah.
I think that you look at all the things that you wanted to see him show this season, he's shown them.
Yeah, no, exactly.
All these guys have room for more consistency, obviously.
Right.
Carter Hart's still only 24. This is the age when a lot of guys are just coming up to the NHL as goalies.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that 24 and under group has looked really good. And, other guys have had some injuries. Maybe other guys haven't stepped forward. But to me, that's been one of the positive takeaways from the season. And then you look at the Phantoms. The Phantoms are in a playoff chase. And but it's been a lot of the young guys stepping up. Tyson Forster, Elliot Denoyer, Grundy Attard.
Yeah.
Those guys, and Sam Ersson, both at the AHL level and a little bit at the NHL level. Hit the wall a little bit in the last week or two.
Yeah.
But he's had a really good season overall. So to me, I think that's been one of the positives of the season. And then you can look at the levels under that. The Cutter Gauthiers, Emil Andrea.
Mm-hmm. With the PTO now with the Phantoms. Yep.
He's on the PTO with the Phantoms, and then it'll probably be on an entry-level deal sometime for next season. So those are all positives. I mean, the Flyers still don't have the top end guys, the guys who projected being franchise players, but the surrounding group I think is actually shaping up pretty well. You got to get those big pieces in place and figure out your salary cap. Those are the two other really big things moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. I agree, and I think one of the things with that, especially with, just one thing to add on the young guys. I mean, for some of them, right, for guys playing for deals, and the Flyers need guys, and this kind of ties into what you were just saying about the salary cap. This kind of ties into, the Flyers need younger players on cheap deals, and that was why I wasn't really, obviously if they could have moved Nick Saylor at the deadline, I would have probably done it if you could have, right? If you were able to get a pick. But I was thinking to myself, why? Because he plays hard. He's on a cheap deal. He knows how to be a Flyer. He's played good this season alone. I think some guys have played well, right? And he's just, one example. Some guys haven't played great, and another one would, for most of the season, that would be Travis Sanheim. Bill, is there any answer that you can think of to what has been going on with Sanheim this year?
I really think that in a lot of ways the contract has been weighing on him. Mm-hmm. And it's not uncommon for a guy to sign a big extension and really struggle like hell his first year after he signs it. The contract doesn't kick in until July the 1st, when his no trade would kick in and get the signing bonus and all that. Until July 1st, the Flyers can trade him. Now, what you get, what kind of hockey trick you can make, I don't know. But I think that Travis is a player who sometimes his confidence wanes a little bit. And I really think he got, other than November, kind of got off on the wrong foot. He hasn't been able to retrieve it. He's a better player than he's played like this year, but that's one of the two big decisions, because I think at least one Provorov or Sanheim will go this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And Torts may have one opinion, the organization may have another opinion, but that's definitely a big decision. But Sanheim's year has been probably one of the biggest disappointments this season, for sure.
Yeah, especially too because again, he gets the extension on opening night, like maybe I don't know, maybe like 20 minutes before puck drop. It ended up becoming official. Obviously, it was done before that. It was one of the things that you looked at. I was like, all right, well, maybe Sanheim's going to be around for a while, and everybody was kind of looking at, it was kind of flip flopped with his partner, which was Ristolainen. It was like, oh, get Risto out of here, and that was the whole talk of the town. Now it's different. Most people want to keep Ristolainen, and now everybody wants Sanheim gone. And I think the one thing with him is just he's too inconsistent. There's and obviously we've talked about this before. There's some games where Sanheim looks great, and there's some games where Sanheim looks awful, and there's really no in between. And that's the one thing I think that's been different with him this year is that last year it seemed like he was good every night. This year it's just kind of ebbed and flowed, and he hasn't been able to get into a rhythm. Just going off of that, obviously injuries have been a main part for the past handful of seasons now. Are you in favor for Couturier to play this year? Again, like I mentioned off the top, you have 12 games left for tonight. Obviously, Coots is dying to play. Is that something you'd be opposed to or no?
Well, I'm going to put a caveat on it first. If there's any risk, right? If he's not 100%, then you don't take any risks here.
Yeah.
It's too important. If he really does feel as good as he says he does, it would be nice for him to get into a few games, get that out of his head. Can he take the pounding in some games and give you a little bit of a sense of confidence going into the off season? Because if that doesn't happen, by the time he gets into a game, it's been 18 months since he's played a game. That's a long stretch with no hockey.
Yeah.
So, it's funny. A couple of weeks ago, I might have given you a different answer as to Konechny or Couturier playing again. I don't want any chances with Konechny. We know what Konechny can do.
Oh, yeah, we've seen it, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Required. I really don't want to see Konechny play again this year unless there's really fine. I think the runway will run out on Konechny, truthfully. I think chances are pretty good Couturier will play. But with that caveat, if he can play, go for it.
Right, exactly, and especially too because I think it leaves him in his mind going into the summer that's hey I might be able to play a little and not I might be but he'll be able to play going into next season. He has that in his mind. He knows what he can do over the summer, and unfortunately the Flyers had. It's so strange how many injuries they've had, and if you really sit there and you think about it, it's awful luck with a lot of them, and some of it is I guess their own doing at the same time. But on the flip side of things too, some of them were really fluke. I mean, Farabee, that's from lifting weights. Bobby Brink, it's a similar thing. Like it's just so unfortunate with kind of how all of it's gone down. Tonight, Flyers taking on the Panthers at 7:00. We're about 27 minutes away from puck drop or so. Alex Lyon in net, former Flyer. Are there any? And I ended up adding this in since they announced that Lyon was starting. But any things on Alex Lyon that you can think of from when he was a Flyer, and what are some of the things you're looking for tonight against Panthers?
Well, the thing with Alex is, he can be a little unorthodox sometimes.
Yeah.
Doesn't always look pretty. But one thing that always stood out with Alex is how hard he competes. He'll look out of position and make a great save and fight for a second save on the same play. You know how much heart he has. You know how hard he competes. He's not the prettiest technical goalie. And sometimes he'll guess wrong. And it can look kind of ugly sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But, Alex Lyon is he's a competitor. And he's a guy who's also so easy to like and so easy to root for.
Yeah.
Maybe not against the Flyers, but to pull for Alex. So, The thing was Bobrovsky had started, I think it was 12 games in a row. So, it's been a little while since Alex got into an NHL game. It's only because they're playing a back-to-back in the third time in 4 nights that he's in. So, there's all kinds of incentive on Florida to dig deep tonight and play a good game in front of them. But sometimes if the Flyers can bring pressure and play a pretty solid game,
Yeah.
you have a chance to maybe wear them down a little bit. It's just based on how busy their schedule's been lately. So that's what I look for from a Flyer side.
Right, exactly. I mean, especially too. I mean, for Florida, they're 1 point ahead of Pittsburgh right now. 79 games played, same amount, or 79 points, same amount of games played with 70. And they're 5-point lead over the Capitals. So they have a little bit of wiggle room, but not much, and they're pretty close to catching the Islanders. So it's a big game for them. And I think when I actually was just starting doing podcasts and stuff, one of the guys that was really good to us was Alex Lyon, and I interviewed him in the bubble for. I mean, he was on the phone with us for, I think we recorded for 40 minutes, and he stayed on for another hour and a half. I mean, during the bubble, there wasn't much else for them to be doing. So we ended up kind of just talking hockey for a while, and he was a super nice guy, and he was great. And it was one of my favorite interviews I've ever done. Just kind of getting back to the Flyers a little bit. Torts mentioned the other day about Allison. He said he was always hurt like 10 times. I think that literally was the exact number he said it. What have you kind of seen from Wade this season? Because he plays the last game, he comes back in against Carolina. The one criticism I think that I have of Tortorella with this is he's putting his game into a box. And and that box is like the size of like an engagement ring box, where literally all Wade can do is get the puck, get to the red line, chip it in, and change, and that's pretty much it. Or and obviously finish his check, something like that. Everything is north south. He's not really making plays. I think that's honestly kind of hurt the Flyers a little bit too, because I've been thinking about this a little bit, and this is a little off topic to the question, but if you add a Couturier in. And say, they ended up getting younger centers and they have guys that can be creative and make plays. How much more of the north-south are you going to be able to take if you want to have playmakers on your team? Because that is one of the things that you're not really going to have, and because you're forcing everything to just go straight up the ice.
Yeah, of course that's not going to change.
Yeah,
the head coach is the boss.
Right.
You're going to play his system, or you're not going to play.
Yeah.
So it's up to the player to adapt to it as best as he can. The thing with Wade is I think he keeps getting to a point where he's playing pretty darn effectively, including getting some goals, and then he inevitably gets hurt again. I don't know how you avoid that. This year it hasn't even necessarily been reckless kind of injuries. It's just been one was off of a shot block, one was just off of a seemingly harmless kind of play. I don't know how he gets away from it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it is hard to get and stay in a rhythm. The Carolina game, he only played about 7-8 minutes. The Lazinski was only played about 5.5, and he's not playing tonight. So one thing I would like to see more with Wade, truthfully, is he's a really good flank shooter. He has a very heavy shot. Maybe Forster's is better, but Allison is pretty good too. Mm-hmm. They've never even tried him on PP2, not for more than a shift or two here and there. I think if you use Allison in sometimes a power play role, and they could they need more guys who can put the puck in the net, more guys with grit who can win battles in front.
Yeah.
Especially since JVR won't be back next year, so that's one other net front option they won't have. So I would have liked to have seen a little longer look in that regard for Wade.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be in the cards in camp, but we'll see. But I mean, truthfully, other than the injury side, I think he's developing fine. Truthfully.
Yeah. No. I honestly I couldn't agree more. I think for Wade, it's just it's just he's so. And I remember talking about this. I believe it was with you in preseason that. He just, every time you go into the corner, you kind of like, every time he goes into the corner, when you're watching, you kind of just like wins because you're like, oh God, like don't get hurt again. And it's happened before, and unfortunately, like you mentioned, the game against, I think it was Ottawa, ended up getting hurt in the corner, and I think that was back in November. Just I feel like for the overall just the way that the team has been playing, right? And I think that's kind of goes to what you're saying too. See what you have. I mean, like example, like Zamula, he comes up, he's playing tonight. You see what he can do on the power play. See what he can do on the penalty kill. I mean, obviously, Torts mentioned today that certain things can change, but in the last couple of games here, right, as I mentioned, you got 12 games left after tonight. You want to try to find everything, but Bill, I got about 60 seconds with you. Just one last question. If you had to give Morgan Frost a rating through A through F, A plus, A minus, A, B, whatever, what would you kind of give him? Because, he's obviously been a guy that there's a lot around him, and some people want him here, some people don't. What would your assessment of him be?
Honestly, I would give him somewhere between a B and a B minus. Mm-hmm. I'd still like to see a little more consistency out of Morgan. I think he's moving his feet better. I think he's creating. There's still nights where I want to see how he looks when he's really up on his skates, because when he does that, he's highly effective. And some nights it isn't there for him.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that a little bit more. I'd like to see a little bit more of a, he has a good arsenal. Like the toe drag move and shoot. I'd like to see him show some of that creativity he has. And just in terms of protecting the puck, I think there's room to improve. And, some of his turnovers don't bother me. Some of them are in risky areas of the ice where I think he can get better at that too. But I think overall, on the whole, I'm happy with this season. I am.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bill, thanks so much. I appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight, as always. And it's always good talking to you. So thanks for doing this.
We'll talk again soon.
All right, Bill. Talk to you. Bye. There he is, Bill Meltzer from NHL.com, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, and HockeyBuzz.com. Bill's great. Bill's awesome. So again, Flyers taking on the Panthers tonight. I mentioned it a bunch. I haven't stopped. I feel like I've been repeating myself, but you have to. So let me. We're a little over by like 2 minutes, so the times are a little off. Just to kind of look at that. So again, like I mentioned, this is a big game for the Panthers. Flyers versus Panthers preview for right now. And again, if anybody else would want to call in, talk about the game tonight, a little preview, again, call 267-939-1216. Again, for the Panthers, it's a big game. They're 1 point ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Getting a call right now. Let me answer this one. Hey, this is Chris. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's Johnny Mercury. What's going on, brother?
Hey, man. How are you?
Yeah, calling in from good old Richmond, Virginia. So, calling all the way from the middle part of the East Coast.
Oh, nice, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, you were talking before about young players, and I'm such a I don't know if you follow wrestling like Paul Heyman. I'm such an advocate of Samuel Urson,
mm-hmm.
And honestly, that was one of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, all these younger players that we have coming in, and I've seen a lot of players that play for the Phantoms and play for minor league teams that, pretty much have a big run in like the AHL, like Samuel Urson, and they brought him up, and then Samuel Urson was doing absolutely fantastic when he was in net.
Yeah.
I mean, more consistency, I think, would have been a lot more nicer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm not a big fan of Felix Sandstrom, but I wanted to know what you thought of Samuel Urson, and do you think that it would have been a little bit more better for the Flyers if they would have kept Urson in, because he seemed like he was doing really well. His stops, his save percentage.
Yeah.
I think he was doing good.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think for Urson, and just going off of the games he played against some of the opponents. I think one of the biggest things that I really like about Urson is he's very calm. He doesn't move much. When the puck is in tight, or if it's around his crease, or if he's not, he doesn't seem bothered by it, and he makes a very calm save when the play looks not calm, if that makes sense. Like it could be a very high dangerous play, and he's very calm in net. And I think I like that. I think that's one of the main things of his game. I honestly think the reason they've kind of gone back and forth and had different goaltenders, and they've used Hart, they've used Urson, they've used Sandstrom. One of the things was Sandstrom wasn't playing too great and then ended up getting sick, so they had to bring up Urson a little bit. We probably saw him more than we probably would have. For Urson alone, I have this on my notes as well with the Phantoms. The Phantoms are fighting for a playoff spot, and one of the main things that I personally believe in, and Coach John Tortorella has talked about this too, is you have a team here, and you have an organization, right, that needs something to kind of build on. And I think making the American League playoffs and the Phantoms qualifying for the Calder Cup playoffs is a huge thing. And it's huge for so many, on so many different levels, for so many different things, especially when you're trying to develop guys, and obviously development's been an issue for this team for a while. So I think a lot of it, honestly, was just, they wanted them to play in Lehigh Valley at the same time too, because you also have to figure out what you're doing with Sandstrom, because Sandstrom, again, he was a guy that the Flyers tried to put Sandstrom on waivers and nobody would take him. So, there's different things with that, and I think if they could have gotten a pick or something out of him, they probably would have done it at the deadline, but it just didn't make any sense because you would have had to call a person for the rest of the season, and you don't want to do that. So, at the same time, too, you want to be able to kind of go into next season with that in your mind. And I just think the biggest thing is you wanted to have Urson ready for the American League playoffs, and I think that was just the biggest thing.
Yeah, of course. But I was just thinking that, honestly, I think around the time where we were in that 10-game losing streak, I think we needed a miracle, and I saw that in Urson, and and to be perfectly honest, I would have rather had him. Because I always look at what Carolina did with Pyotr Kochetkov, and pretty much threw him into the fire. And then, man was pulling out shutouts on a regular basis. And I was like, I know that Kochetkov and Urson are like two different animals. Yeah. But honestly, I felt around that time that the Flyers really needed something different.
No, for sure. I mean, look, it's definitely fair. I mean, the season hasn't gone great. Carolina's been one of the better teams in the league. There's been a lot that's going on with them, and for Kochetkov, who I ended up seeing live when I went down to Carolina, he was great. He's obviously a fan favorite and all of that stuff.
I can't speak a lick of English, but it's so funny watching him try.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you calling in, Johnny. It was good talking to you, and
no problem, man.
Hope to hear from you soon.
Of course. All right, man.
I'll talk to you.
See
Bye.
Ya.
All right. So again, Flyers taking on the Florida Panthers tonight. Let's get into some different things here. So the Panthers, it's a big game for them. Playoffs. They need these points, right? They need all of that stuff. Florida is a team that is kind of in the mix of they're good. They're not great. They have some good components to their team. Obviously Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, right? Last 5 games, Reinhart's got 5 goals, Tkachuk with 7 assists, and then 11 points. Last 5 games for the Flyers, Lawton with 2 goals, Ristolainen with 2 assists, and Tippett with 2 points. If you're looking at the overall, actually that's wrong for Tippett. That should be 5 points. For the goaltenders, obviously, like I mentioned before, Carter Hart in net for the Flyers tonight. Alex Lyon, former Philadelphia Flyer and Phantom, for the Florida Panthers. On the season, Hart with an 18-21 and 10 record. He has a 2.94 goals against average and a 907 save percentage with 1 shutout. I think one of the biggest things for Hart, who I actually think has had a pretty good season so far for the Flyers, he's and it's crazy because I've seen this like a lot. With obviously not everybody's a huge, I guess, keep Hart train, right? There's been a lot of talk of trading Hart. He's been one of them guys that, and the NHL app is absolutely horrible. I just have to say, I'm trying to get some stats, and it's like the worst app to actually get this stuff. It's just incredible. But anyway, Carter Hart. Hey, look, Hart's been good. I mean, for most of the season, there's been a lot of different things that you wanted to see from him that you are seeing, right? He's stopping the puck, obviously, the main thing. And he's keeping the Flyers in games. I mean, he's not really he's giving up some soft goals, here and there. But that happens. It doesn't, I'm not sure I'm that much of a really like, it's not like a key component to me because it's just like the Flyers are so bad defensively. Them just like doesn't really matter, honestly. And I'm not saying it doesn't matter because it's obviously one of the things that it could carry over, but you also have to look at it too. It's like they're so bad in front of them. Everything has kind of been going wrong with the team. How much of it can you really jot down as that being an issue, for long term? And again, like I mentioned, going up against Alex Lyon this season with the Panthers, he's got 6 games played. He's 3-2-1, 389 goals against average, and an 892 save percentage. Hasn't played many NHL games in his career. He's only played 30. This will be his 31st. And again, Lyon was always good. With me, and just overall, right? He was a really nice guy to talk to. If you're just looking at team stats for the Flyers and Panthers as well, Flyers power play is 15.5%. Penalty kill is 73.6%. That power play is 32nd in the league, and the penalty kill 28th. Face-off percentage, like I mentioned earlier, 45.5% on the season. That's 30th in the NHL, so not good. Flyers are usually one of the better teams in the face-off range. Goals for 2.61 for the Flyers, that's 30th, and then goals against 3.30, that's 22nd. Florida, they have a 22.2% power play at 13th in the league, 74.2% on the penalty kill, 48.5 in face-off. So they're not that great of a face-off team either. 3.48, and this is really where Florida's problem comes in. 3.48 goals a game, that's 6th in the league, and 3.36 goals against, that's 23rd in the league. So that's not great. You're giving up a lot of goals, and their goaltending hasn't been great. We'll see what happens tonight with Lyon. I think player to watch for the Flyers is probably Owen Tippett. I mean, I don't really know who else there is really to kind of put down, right? I think for Tippett, he's played well. I mean, he's making strides, right? I think there's different things that you can kind of add with him, especially too because again, he's moving the puck up the ice. Like he has so much room, and he just like the way he's been skating, how efficient he gets up the ice, all of that stuff. Obviously, Matt Tkachuk for Florida, he's incredible. I mean, the Flyers played Florida a couple times this year. Twice already. This will be the third and final meeting. The Panthers are interesting, right? I mean, they're a team that's kind of in the mix to make it. They're also could miss, and really whatever team, if it's the Islanders, if it's Florida, if it's Pittsburgh, if it's even Buffalo or whoever else, whatever team that makes that second wild card spot, you're going up against Boston. I mean, I don't know if that's going to be much of a challenge for the Bruins. I do think Pittsburgh has the edge if they were to play Boston. I tweeted that out earlier. They've had some tough games, close games with them. Obviously, the Winter Classic was a huge success for Pittsburgh against the Bruins. So, I mean, really, again, it's a big game for the Panthers. I mean, it's really gimme points if you look at it on their side. For the Flyers, I know Torts isn't a fan of spoiler, but that's what the Flyers could be doing right now. That's just kind of the reality behind the whole situation. But a couple of things to kind of end out the show here. We got 5 minutes left. Again, Andre to the Phantoms on a PTO. Assuming he'll be getting his ELC soon. All of that different stuff. The Phantoms right now, they have 68 points. They have a 5-point lead on Hartford, 8-point lead on the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, just to kind of, go into the playoffs. Because for the Phantoms, again, making the playoffs is going to be huge for them. And it's not the best situation for the Phantoms because they have lost their last 3 games. They're on a 3-game losing streak, and they've played 62 games, 68 points. Bridgeport has a game in hand, and they're only four points back. So the next couple of games, you're going to really want to try and win those, close them out, so that you can kind of go into the playoffs and kind of have that all figured out. So you don't have to really make it harder for yourself. Philly Ghost, I agree. He's very smooth side to side. Urson, just like insane, man. Philly Ghost again. Mac Kachuk would have been a prototype Philadelphia Flyer and leader. I agree. It would have been nice. I mean, the Flyers weren't really in the position to get him. It would be great if he was on our team. It'd be awesome. I could do that in on PlayStation. Again, the Phantoms, and also too things have kind of changed with our team, right? I mean, Forrester was called up. Dinoyer was up here for a little bit, and they were winning. In their last 8 games, they got 10 points out of a possible 16. It's pretty good. They were on a 5-game winning streak as well. There's little things that you want to see from them and things that you can kind of go on that you can build with if you're Lehigh Valley. And, again, Zamula called up on Monday. Him and Forrester will play the next 3 games for the Flyers. That's tonight against Florida, Thursday against the Minnesota Wild, and then Saturday against the Detroit Red Wings, and then they'll go back to Lehigh Valley. A couple updates as well from practice. Tippett was a maintenance day yesterday, is playing tonight, nothing really too crazy. So look, that's for the show, and for me, I think this was great. I had a great time doing this. Huge success, as always. Again, Bill Meltzer, thanks again to Bill for calling in. Thanks to Bill. Thanks to everybody else for in the chat, all of that stuff. Tristan, Johnny. This was great, huge success. And and again, Flyers taking on the Panthers tonight. We'll see. I don't think it's going to be let me think of a way how to put this. I don't think it's going to be the best game for the Flyers all around, right? Because, again, you're kind of in that little... It's just unfortunate with the team, right, where we are, because now you're kind of just let's just get the season over with, and unfortunately that's kind of where everyone's at. It's a shame. I mean, it really is, and I'm now just starting to realize that, this kind of stinks. And it's really stunk for most of the season. But anyway, again, thanks everybody so much for all the support. As always, again, it's a couple content things. I got the second Flyers Friday flashback game coming this Friday. That's going to be Game 6 from 2012 against the Florida Panthers. Against the Penguins. I'm saying Panthers because of tonight. The watch party for this Saturday, Flyers taking on the Red Wings at 1 o'clock. Going to be doing that as well. All that stuff. Stay tuned for the game recap video tonight. And every game for the rest of the season, every night the rest of the season that we're doing the pod, the Flyers play on Tuesday. So there will be a preview for those games kind of going on through the rest of the year and then into the summer. So again, thanks everybody so much for all the support. It was a great show. Always enjoyed doing this stuff. And yeah, thanks guys. And I will see you all next week.